So the platform is yours. So we give
on Tuesday, I was giving a presentation at GZU. And just yesterday, we went to the Zimbabwe ruins. And it was very nice, and I was just being myself. And one feedback that I got there was, you are so different from when you're presenting. When you're presenting, you are so serious. And believe me, after this experience that we had in the mountain, I don't think people will listen to you. So my question was, so do I present being friendly, or do I present keeping my seriousness because I want people to listen to me? That's a question I'm still trying to answer. I'm going to try. Those are the very big shoes. I'm not that energetic. It doesn't matter how I try. I cannot get there, but I'll try. And today my job is very, very short. I am here to say those of you who tried case teaching, good for you. But if you have not tried case teaching, I'm here to challenge you and join me. And let's write the cases, let's teach with them and see how it takes us. And the only experience, the only way we can say it works or it doesn't work is if we try it. So I heard that we have 11 PhD students who are staff members. Are we academics? We have 10 academics. So are we all in the classroom teaching?
Yes.
Yes, we are. Can I see the hands of those that are saying, Mina, I've tried case teaching? No one. Who, doctor, tried it? Have you tried teaching your classes? Are we undergrad or postgrad or mixed? Abazalwane, you're going to have to talk to me. This afternoon we're having a hot tea and coffee. We need to be here. So let's talk. I tell you, Mina, I don't have the energy. You have to help me wake up so I can help you wake up. Anditi. Yeah. So, yes. So, where was I again? You see now, they're not talking to me and I forget.
You're asking undergrad.
Oh yes, are we mixed? We teaching undergrad, we are mixed. So even postgrad, we don't have except Doc here. The ones who are teaching in cases. You are teaching case men. How is it working for you?
I think it gives you more practical approach. Very practical approach to
It gives practical. With the mask, I struggle to hear it.
Sorry, practical approach.
Practical approach. Thank you so much. Now, how are you finding case teaching?
Yeah, I think it helps, particularly in the case of application.
In the case of
Then
application.
you can get knowledge applied to the case that you.
Strategic leadership. And sometimes you find that the delegates are saying, but these frameworks we're using, we were not, the only reason is we didn't know that we're applying strategic leadership frameworks, but we are already using that. Yes, ma'am?
Can we have the definition of what is case teaching?
Marianne, when are you finishing my class before you start? Yeah, you're finishing my class before it starts. Let me just continue. This picture here, with case teaching, already it's been explained, it's about, the reason is to actually cement your pedagogy. It's all about how do I bring the frameworks, the theory in class and make them more practical, more applicable and more exciting. Because imagine now teaching organizational behavior, sorry prof, and then you bring in that big, where is it? That big book and the textbook like this, and you have to go through all the processes, all the principles, all the steps. So the case brings life in those processes that students need to know, those principles. It brings that life, you bring it into life. So it's all about that. And again, why am I here? I told you it's very short. I'm here to find those collaborators and say, after the presentation, it's nice, it works, I want to try it. And we course, 1, 2, 3. And the last one, exponential growth. You know that in our organization or our institution, when you publish article, it's a tick. Dr. Maroma said it. But case writing and case publication with a teaching note is another tick. If you're going to get what you call the units with one research article, we get 1 point or another unit for 2 cases with the teaching note. So they are recognized now in the academic space. So think about it. If you haven't tried writing one. Okay. So yes ma'am, there we come. So case teaching is all about bringing those arguments into life. I'm going to read it now here. It says the description of an actual situation commonly involving a decision, an opportunity, a problem, or an issue facing a person or persons in an organization, an industry, or a country. So you can choose what do you want to teach or what do you want to explain to the students in the class. That's basically that. And it is written to specific teaching objectives and requires the reader to step figuratively into the position of the protagonist. That is the case. And you use a case study to introduce the theory or to explain the theory or a framework to the student. Sometimes it's so difficult when you open that organizational behavior textbook. You want to explain the framework. They don't understand. It's so complicated. So that's where you bring in the case teaching. You help with the application of the case to explain the theory or the framework or to introduce it. Does it make sense now? Yeah. Right. So, why must you teach with cases again? I'm going to skip this one because we answered that. Unless if you were not where you? Oh, then you listening. Right. So I'm going to bring that one in and say we teach cases because we want to bring real life business situation into the classroom. 1, 2, it's a powerful teaching tool. I just said it. That framework is so difficult. It's complicated for students to understand. But when you bring the case application and they're able to apply the framework, it becomes exciting. It becomes more easier for students to understand. It's a unique and exciting way of learning. Instead of having those students sleeping, then they're like, okay, so how does it work? How did you get to there? What happens next? So they want to know more because now you're telling them a story. And so, how can case teaching be introduced in the classroom? Now that we know, so how are you going to introduce it? What are the benefits of teaching in case? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I found one of the benefits of case teaching to be the fact that it actually helps to enhance the students' analytical and critical thinking skills by putting them in those particular situations and asking them to vision those situations and come up with maybe solutions or alternatives or whatever. So basically you are developing the intellectual ability.
Their intellectual ability, their critical thinking skills. Because put yourself in the shoes of the protagonist. If you were the protagonist, what would you do? They are forced to think. They are forced to not just replicate the framework, but to actually analyze it, unpack it, and say, I would do this, using this, and this is why. So interesting. Okay, so these are the reasons, because now I'm told that you need to be home. I'm rushing. So these are the reasons, other reasons why case teaching is beneficial. One of those is the debate, to strike the discussion in the classroom, to make the classroom exciting. Right, so how is this picture like a case study? When you look at this picture, what comes to mind? Somebody said something. Yes, ma'am.
Say the cave.
A cave. What about it?
Someone in the cave. Somebody in the
That cave, a little light shining from the torch that is holding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Little light shining from the torch.
Someone in Ukraine.
Someone in Ukraine. Right. that a torch, if they're hiding, so they're asking themselves a question that they cannot come up with. So cases help the student to discover the unknown. It simplifies things to the student. It actually helps the student to explore and make this course exciting. I'm not just doing it to pass, but it is so interesting. What am I taking out of it? And what am I taking home? What story do I have to tell about this course to explore? And the last one, this tells you again, as the lecturer now, how to not write a case. Because again, your case needs to be clear. Why are you writing it? Who are you writing it for? You need to be clear. So if it's like this, and I'm sitting here and I need to read this case and teach it to my students, I should have all the directions. I need to know the processes. What did you, when, how did you do it? Why did you write the case? And what was the motive or the rationale behind writing this case? And this now comes to the case writing. Questions for, when it comes to case teaching? Yes, ma'am.
Not exactly a question, but I just also thought that it also allows the students to appreciate different perspectives to a same case or a same situation, and also to respect also differences of opinions and evaluation methods, etc., etc.
You are so correct. You are so correct. We just wrote a case that was published in January, and the case was about marketing, social marketing during pandemic. But then when I was teaching the case in Feb, I managed to teach that in entrepreneurship. Actually, you introducing the business model and using the same case. So it's not only helping the student to see other perspectives, but you as a lecturer as well to say, I teach in the marketing and in the entrepreneurship space. Therefore, this is the case that I can use and in this multiple ways. So thank you for that, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say at University of Portsmouth, we would get the cases and the teaching material and everything provided to us. And for some reason, I didn't know where this comes from, because you would see Prentice Hall, you would see Old Springer and other publishers producing them. But when I came to South Africa, there was this Fulbright scholar. He has been doing the rounds in South Africa, a very big fat guy, kind of funny and energetic. He was teaching us how to write cases. But what I know is, out here, most of us don't even know, how do I write a case study, a proper case study? And his teaching was approaching a company and persuading them to give you the information about the challenges they are facing as a company. And I don't know, that is the challenge, for you to come up with case material properly done, questions properly done and professionally done. That's not so easy.
Let's do that quickly and see if we can help. Let's do that quickly and see if we can help. One, yes, you can go to a company. I'm more into writing for entrepreneurs, the SMEs. So it's easier to access them than the corporate. The corporate needs to be connected to this and that, but it's not difficult at all. You just need to do your homework, I think. But first of all, what is it that you want to do? Cases are coming, but you who's writing this case, why do you want to write the case? Remember I said, are you planning to introduce the framework, or to expand on the framework, or to explain the framework? You need to identify that first. When you are done and say, okay, I want to teach business model, I want to teach design thinking, but now my student has problem to understand the design thinking as a framework. So that is what I want. Now I need a case. That's already step number one. Done. Step number two is, where am I going to publish this case? Remember Dr. Maruma just spoke now and said you need to know your journal, where you want to publish. Case is the same process because it's research. So I know I'm going to teach design thinking, and now this is where I'm going to publish. Then you go there and you look at the framework, what is required, and how the writing framework, and then you follow that for that particular yes, publishing house. Right, now you've got an idea and you know where you're going to publish. Then you have to find it level. You have it, now you find the company. But now, here's the thing. When it's easier to if you don't have a framework, you're going to ask all the questions. In the end, you find that they are not addressing the framework. So it's very advisable to find the framework first, then ask the questions. And when you ask the questions, you have to find the dilemma. What is in? So now, with the case that we just wrote now that was published in January, is that this gentleman just started a business in 2019, towards the end September. 6 months down the line, it's locked down. What do you do? And remember, he took the family money to start this business. And that was the last one. And he started 4 that failed. This one, he begged the wife to say that for the last time. The wife was like, not anymore. Now it's locked down. What do you do? Do you cancel and whatever the money that is left, take it back to the family investment or savings? Or what? So that's the dilemma that he was facing. You need to find the dilemma. Because now, remember, it's going to play out in the class. When you're done, who's the protagonist? Remember when I started, I said either the organization, the person themselves, the industry, or the country. I just had a very interesting idea, Prof, when we were in the ruins yesterday. I'm thinking, when I get at the entrance, nothing says ruins. They call it monument. But the people are saying the ruins. That's a very good case. Decolonizing education. But you first decolonize the mindset of the people within the country. That's a beautiful case right there. And then now you know who's the protagonist this time. Is it the people in Zimbabwe or is it the country itself? It's the people, right? But now you can't have all the people signing your consent form because now you have to send for ethical clearance. Who should sign? Remember now it's research. You can't just go interview anybody and everyone without signing. So how do we collect this data? Who do we interview? Right? So not all the time you have to go and collect a primary data. This one, information is on the website. So you go on the website and if ever then you find that it's not enough. So surely the government departments, some of them that are responsible for your heritage, your art and culture, you find somebody there who can now extend in what we have from our desktop stage. That's what you do. Alright? So you've got your protagonist and you have the background to the antagonist, which is your website information, those people in the protagonist that we're writing about, the country itself or the monument, depending on who's the protagonist here. And then you find, very important, I'm going to share the case with you so you don't, and yeah, you have this framework. So it is very important to note that the publishable cases, they don't want to hear one voice. The one person you spoke to. You need to hear other voices as well. Otherwise it was just somebody telling you a story. So to have that argument, to have that built up. For example, in this Zimbabwe ruins, you go back to the history first. Why did it get to be called ruins? Yet when you go there, it's a monument. So you see now, you're building up. And earlier on, Prof. Sima was presenting, and they spoke about the farming in research, case writing, the farming as well, the country and the protagonist, and now we get to the challenges that are going to now lead to the framework that you want to teach. So now it's the background. You have and then you unfold the discussion. The last part goes to the teaching note. The teaching case is all about the story, the narrative, what happened, and why did it happen, and what is the decision. It has to end with a question. What do you think that the protagonist must do? If you were the protagonist in this situation, what would you do? Now we move into the teaching note. Teaching note is where you come up with the questions. You have to have the objectives, at least 3 objectives, and you have to have a relevant theory or that framework. I said it's a design thinking. So your objectives, your questions need to be aligned with the design thinking framework. There has to be a golden thread. And then you need to now, you have your planning, this was the planning. Now you go to the protagonist, you sign a consent form, you do your ethical clearance, the steps goes there. Where you interview and then you start writing. And it's it. So your dilemma has to start with the date. And it means what
Same thing.
Oh, thank you!
Same thing.
Oh, that's closer by the way, so is it what languages?
Yeah, the meaning is the same.
The meaning is the same. You see now I'm relocating. And so now, when you write, remember I said you need to find the dilemma. You have to give a synopsis. I wanted to show quickly the case. Oh no, you see now I changed the laptop. I had a case, but now this is not mine. My laptop was not connecting. I wanted to just show you this, but I'll share the article, the case study with you. It's the one that I published, and yeah, I'll share it with you to just check the synopsis and. Right. So the dilemma has to have a date, and you cannot have a situation this year and you work this year. But the case that you wrote, it used to be like that, but with COVID things changed. Because everybody else was writing 2020, this happened, 2020. Before COVID, it was about if the case happened in 2017, your scenario would start 2016, leading to what happened in 2017. But with COVID, I see that changing. So yeah, but it has to have a date, and then your protagonist identified by the name and the position. It is March 2020. It is April 2020. Marilyn Harare is sitting in her office, sipping her coffee, and it's now the story narrated. And then she's thinking, my business is doing so well. My business was doing so well, and now there's COVID. And the president has just introduced a lockdown. What am I going to do? One, I don't want to let go of my employees. Two, my business is doing so well, and I did not think beyond where I am because I have a 5-year plan. For me to be able to reduce a 5-year plan into few months, few days, how do I do that in a very short space of time? There you go. So, what do I do in this space? So, in this case, we are now talking resilience and sustainability. That's what we're going to teach. And then appropriate your dilemma also has to lead to the objectives of why you're writing this case, why you want to teach this case. The other one has to be clear and interesting. Remember the picture of the guy in the. Don't confuse the student. Don't confuse the lecturer or the facilitator on the other side, because your case has to be so clear, and it has to have a teaching note so that when you are not there, I can teach it without meeting you, without you explaining it to me. So I read the case, I see the teaching note, I can teach it without you being there. That's how clear it should be. And it needs to be an action trigger. So now, what do I do? Do I close my business down, going back to the down? Do I close my business down? It just started 6 months ago. Or what do I do? And I asked the students. So with this gentleman, he started a sneaker brand called DRIP, D-R-I-P. How many of you know the sneaker? When last were you on Google? Please Google it. It's the second largest brand, sneaker brand in South Africa. One is Batu, number 2 is Brand. And it's the second largest brand. It started in 2019 September, right? So what he did, he decided, I'm not going to switch off, I'm not going to close off, I'm moving online. So he deleted everything on his Facebook page, all his personal whatever Facebook page, and he told his story. This is why I started this business. And the brand, when you see the marketing or the advertising boards of the DRIP case, it says a township story. Because he started as a nobody who was living in the township, in a shed. Do you guys have sheds here? I haven't seen one. You do?
Yes.
corners. I need to go to other corners. So in a shed in the township of Alex, South Africa. So his mother was a domestic worker. He had nothing, no shoes to go to school. And he would wear this simple thing, we call them detender. And he would go to the dustbin, find a old Nike, take that brand, put it on his own shoe, and he would go to school like that. Other boys, they liked it. And they asked him to make that for them, and that's how he made money in school. So later on, after 4 businesses failed, he remembered, this is how I survived in high school. Let me try it. And this time around, I made my own shoe. And he told the whole story on his Facebook page. Believe you me, in 2 weeks, he sold 600 pairs from the boot of his wife's car, because he sold his. From the boot of his wife's car, that was 2020 June. 2020 December, he was opening the 4th outlet in South Africa. 2021 in May, he was opening the 7th one. Now he's doing so. So in less than 2 years, that's how he grew. That is the power of social media. And that is where the case comes. Now when you introduce this brand and this marketing principles, and then you go into the entrepreneurship, you join a business model and say, all those things, right? And now your dilemma has to be in 60 to 100 words. It has to be specific. This is the problem that this protagonist is facing, and what must he do? 60 to 100 words. That's that. Quickly. When you write a case, it has to have context. Doctor here said, this guy was just coming and sending us these cases. I have 2 hands in the class who are teaching cases in their classroom. How many of those are African cases? Yes, ma'am?
No, there are some African cases, but to be quite clear, the majority would be international.
Mostly international. Very few African cases, right? That is where the gap is. I'm not going to teach this one. And yeah, so when we publish, you have that one. This is why most of them are international cases. You have, so far the 4, let me see, 5, the other one is on the other side, I'll move. Here is 3 main publishing, case publishing. When you look at the first one is Ivy. If you want to know where to publish, look at the stats here. General Management and Strategy, 13,000 cases have been published. But Jomai Organizational Behavior Problem. This is 2019. When you look at the company has been there for 40 years. 40 years, only 5,000 cases, organizational behavior, globally. Of the 5,000 cases, how many do you think are African cases? When you look at the top, you see this 40-year-old publishing company or publishing house only had, in 2019, late 2019, it only had 148 cases from Africa. Of all of this. Yet we are in Africa and we're teaching case level. What does that tell you? When you look at Harvard Business Review, 24,900 cases. It doesn't have anything that says Africa, of all. So you sitting here and you're writing a case. Only 3,000 of the 24,900 are on African stories. Already it's another gap. And if you were to now dig deeper into those 3,000 and you check, how many are those of 3,000, of 24,900 are entrepreneurship? Only 5,000. And that 5,000, it's not African. So it tells you, in Africa, we are more in, what's driving our economy is informality. How many cases are there talking about informality? African cases? None. So this tells you there's so much that we still need to do as African scholars when it comes to case teaching and case writing. Case teaching, we have it. Case writing, we need to work on it because we're teaching the Western And then Emerald, 1,700 cases, and you have your case center. But here's the thing that Prof really challenged me. These case publishing houses, you have to pay a fee to publish, and if you are not, or your institution is not affiliated, you pay to publish that case. So going forward, we need to find ways of publishing our cases in an open access to ensure that those African stories are told and are accessed by African people, anybody who wants to teach. That is the way forward from now. Because what Dr. Maruma was talking about, how when you publish, you get incentives. Yes, even cases, you do that. I skipped that part. It's there. I didn't want to talk about it. Because you teach, you write cases because you are looking for that wonderful incentive. Yet your African colleague can't access it because their institution is not affiliated. What's the point? So if we're gonna make impact as case writers in the continent, we need to ensure that we find a platform and open access where we can publish our cases and make sure that our fellow or our colleagues in other institutions, in the African institutions, they access the cases. So, what to publish? Prof spoke about, when I finished up, spoke about which, the best, he was talking about the best cases. No. Every case can be best. It depends on how you write it. It has to be clear. It has to have a dilemma. It has to address the framework, introduce the framework, or expand on the framework. And that's how it is. So every case can be the best. Who writes the best cases? Who writes the best cases?
Me.
Everybody.
Oh, yes.
Yes. It's not about the case. It's about the story you want to tell, right? It's about the story that you're telling. Not, I'm the best and I write the best cases. No. Tell the story and simplify the framework to your students using the same case. Then you will be the case writer and the case teacher. And did you? So what is the best way to market your case? Here's what's interesting now. The best way to market your case in our institutions, I had two cases that I was going to show, which is the case that I authored and the case that my colleague called Sweet South Africa. It's about domestics and their employers. So go look for it and read it. Sweet South Africa. It's a very interesting case. So when I teach, before I go to all those other Western cases, I look in the house. Who published what and how can I use that case to teach in my class? Right? And I share with the other, but like I said, Prof, right now we need to write cases that is going to be free for us to share with other institutions without looking behind your shoulder. Who saw that? Right? Yes. And that's how we can market our own cases. And we talk about them in the social media. Social media is very powerful. We talk about those cases that we are writing in the social media, and we share with others. And who writes the cases in Africa? I do. Who else?
We are going to.
Right? Because imagine in here we more than 20. Yet one person is writing African stories. And all of us are teaching African students. So let's do something. We need to do something. And is there an interest to read African cases?
Yes.
Yes.
So why are we not? So now tell me, did I challenge you enough?
Yes.
Questions? Comments? I do take complaints. Okay, so I hope I did, because when I started, I said my job here is to, if you are teaching the case, good luck, good for you. But if you're not teaching, if you're not writing a case, my job today was to come and challenge you and say to you, I've shown you the stats. We have so many cases globally, and mostly are Western. We are in Africa, teaching African students, but they know nothing about African stories. Most of the time, the students, because I teach entrepreneurship, you find that students don't want to start their businesses because they don't have the go-to person. You don't have that township entrepreneur who made it, and you bring that township entrepreneur in class and ask them to tell their stories. You always bring Elon Musk, who left us in South Africa, and anyway. So why would you, so for students, and that will also reduce the unemployment rate. Because for me to, it changes my mindset as a student in order, instead of going to the university to study so I can get a job, I want to study so I can create one. And in that way, I am addressing the problem that is facing our continent. Thank you, ma'am.
Just let her sit down and the rest of it, you are going to ask questions. We are going to give you that opportunity.
Okay, I'm done. It's done.
Thank you. Kialibo.
Well, we didn't have that.
Okay.